And we get a first big moment of the Grand Prix. Verstappen starts in 17th position. It's effectively now 15th because there's no Stroll and there's no Albon. Norris is on pole position. The championship is in the balance. It's 44 points after Lando took a few off Max in the sprint, and there's a gulf between the two drivers on the grid. But there's two things that are pretty costly here for Norris at the start. Firstly, George Russell gets a great launch, and once again, Norris loses a pole position into turn one. And we can see already Russell coming past, and there's really nothing that Lando can do after George has done him at the start. And he's held a really good track position here. He's taken the outside line, leaving Lando enough space to go around there, but that would never be an attempt that's going to pay off, particularly on a slippery circuit. You don't want to be touching those white lines early on if you can help it. But further back, you can already see Max has had a great launch, and he's already coming alongside his teammate, who was 12th on the grid. So that's 5 places potentially gained from Max. Checo's had a pretty poor launch, and Max keeps his foot in and goes round the outside at the first corner. So we get 3 wide for third position as Charles Leclerc manages to take a crucial place as well. Max then goes round the outside at turn 3. It's a lovely move to then clear Colapinto and Bottas. Not only has Norris lost a place, that means he's stuck now in traffic for the first stint on a circuit in conditions that it's difficult to overtake on. But Verstappen has gained a heap of places, and that 14-place gap has just narrowed to less than 10 immediately. On board with Russell, and these starts are so tricky to execute. You don't get too many chances to practice a wet start. Everyone starts in second gear, and you can see that from the big 2 there on the middle of George Russell's dash. That is the gear. It's a second gear start, just to try and limit the wheel spin, which is what all of wet starting is about. And Russell does it really well. The clutch release for George is good, but actually it's very, very similar. The initial phase, the reaction and the release from Russell to Norris. But the drive phase now is Russell just tries to get off the throttle, get the rear wheel spin under control, and then just literally just tickle it, just nurse it back on. And this is where you've got to be so smooth. It's like pulling away in a road car compared to racing car, really, in these conditions. And Russell just nails it. It's a really good start from George. It's not a particularly bad start from Lando, but it's just a fantastic start from Russell. And you can hear here the wheel spin that Lando has, just trying to get the throttle down, and he can't. And Russell's through and into the lead. That was actually quite crucial for the first part of the race, and maybe the whole race, with a bit of a domino effect as well. Finally, let's have a look at Verstappen start, because it's very impressive. Also in second gear, and once again, George Russell-esque here, just limiting that rear wheel spin. It opens up very quickly after he dives past a couple of cars. There's his teammate on the left-hand side. And Max has always been good at getting creative on the racing line. He's round the outside of turn 1 to the apex at turn 2, actually getting on the curb, which is sometimes not the best position to be, but he's got the car under control. And he doesn't wash wide at this point, which is quite wise. He could carry more speed through turn 2, but it'd end up in that spot there. Instead, he's actually slow through turn 2, allows Colapinto and Bottas ahead, but he's got a really nice, clear run now to sweep round these guys on the outside that he wouldn't have otherwise had if he was already wheel to wheel. So now with confidence, he can get on the gas, build the speed, and he almost does Lewis Hamilton as well. But the last clever thing is, don't keep it right on the outside here, because probably he'd have been forced off onto that curb and have to back off entirely. So it's a real balance of risk versus reward for Max, and he absolutely nailed it. And within a lap, he's up into the top 10. Now, overtaking in the race was particularly hard. There was no DRS available, and traction was very difficult. It was difficult to follow. You've also got spray for the whole Grand Prix as well. But Max managed to do it very, very well. So we're going to have a look at a few of his overtakes here, because clearly this was a huge thing for him to be able to make the passes that other drivers couldn't. So first of all, we have the end of lap 1. Lewis Hamilton is ahead, and this could have been the first big-name driver that Max would come up against that could have put up a fight. You can see already the spray that's quite difficult. It actually got worse through the later stages of the Grand Prix. But if you're on the racing line here, stuck in with the slipstream of Hamilton, you don't see very much. If you move slightly to the inside, you get a much better field of view in that middle slot. So Max takes the slipstream, then comes to the middle of the road so we can see a bit more, and then he's happy to send the car down the inside of Hamilton, who could have provided quite a tough defence in a Mercedes that had some pace. But Max was just deep enough on the brakes. He was ambitious on the very first lap, and it paid off. The more impressive one, I think, maybe the most impressive that he had, was actually on Oscar Piastri, the McLaren driver who he came up to, the back for 8th position. And this is from a mile back, this one for Verstappen. He's coming from a different postcode, really, trying to pass the inside of Oscar Piastri. Sends it in, and he's still way back as they're on the brakes, really slowing the car down towards the apex. But he's just happy to roll the speed in that Piastri's not. Max also found that this inside line that he's on here, it's actually got plenty of grip. Whilst Piastri is on the same line as Liam Lawson ahead, the conventional racing line, Max was finding good grip and deceleration coming off the racing line on the inside. And he's happy to just release the brakes, get to that inside line, and he can still stop it. He's got tremendous grip. He's also got tremendous confidence. And this final one was the race-winning move for Max, who didn't get immediately fantastic traction behind Esteban Ocon on the restart. Ocon's already had one restart at the head of the field, and he controlled it really nicely. But when you're sitting in second and you've got the confidence of Verstappen on the brakes at turn 1, he'll have banked. Actually, I can brake a lot later than Esteban Ocon the next time, if the next time arises, which it did. As GP had said on the radio, it can all change in an instant. A second chance for Verstappen, and now he knows Ocon brakes quite early at the first corner. And so, once again, from a fair way back, not as far back as the Piastri move, but he sends it to the inside. This is his opportunity in the race, releases the brakes and manages to get to the apex, but cleanly keeps the car on the exit. It's another fantastic move, and it's opportunistic from Verstappen. That's what's so impressive. But I thought I'd have a look as well at how difficult it was to drive these cars with that level of water on a worn or new intermediate tyre. And this is so difficult for anyone at home to comprehend, because these are cars that have about 1,000 horsepower. They're not designed to drive at these slow speeds. The tyre temperatures drop. You've got aquaplaning everywhere. And it is almost impossible to keep it out the barriers, as Franco Colapinto found out, even under safety car conditions. Look at the data here. Esteban Ocon in the blue, Max Verstappen in the red. And the crucial thing is the throttle trace, which is down here, this line here. So when it's going up or down, this is the drivers feathering their way through turns 2 and 3. They get to full throttle here, both of them, down towards turn 4 for a small amount. And then they never really pick up full throttle for the whole rest of the lap, particularly where Colapinto crashed, trying to come out of the final corner and up the hill. Rivers flow there. It's incredibly difficult. And you can see the way that both of them are trying to come on and off the throttle. Verstappen particularly stabbing the throttle, trying to find some level of traction that's just not there. And you can see as well, whilst they're doing this, trying to find a little bit of right foot to get the acceleration down, they're fighting the car. And these are snaps of oversteer that Max in the red is having a little bit more than Esteban in the blue. But all the way around the lap, you're just trying to keep it on the track. You're still under racing conditions, and it's immensely difficult. And that was the risk for anyone that didn't pit, a la Norris, Russell, and Tsunoda. They had to keep it on the track on those used intermediates. That was the downside of not pitting, is just that you're going to aquaplane off as slow as you go. But they did well to actually manage that. Norris did take new tyres, as did George Russell. And here's the look at what those new, hotter intermediates give you. Plenty of grip, basically, compared to Max Verstappen. So under green flag conditions, the main thing is this gulf here, where Lando's able to get some throttle down. He's actually still nowhere near full throttle, all the way from turn 12 to the start-finish line. He's not able to get to full throttle. It's incredible how a Formula One car normally would just blast up the hill, take those couple of sweeping left-handers, no problem at all. But in these conditions, you're constantly modulating. But you can see the red trace much, much quicker than the blue trace, where Norris has confidence in the car. Verstappen's just simply trying to keep it on the island and wait for a safety car or a red flag, which eventually happened. And to me, it wasn't a lucky call. It was an educated guess call from those that got it right. So well done to Alpine, who got a massive payday from this, ended up second and third with Max's good move, and launched themselves to 6th in the championship. And when you get a double podium, you get the big rewards. So fantastic effort from the team and the drivers as well to hold on in what has been a car that's not been able to be in the top 8 in a Grand Prix yet this year. And of course, Verstappen and Red Bull so often getting this right. We've seen it at Silverstone, where they didn't have a good car and finished second. We've seen it in Canada, where they were down to third at one point and comfortably won. In Brazil, when things are up against everyone in the field, when you've got these sort of conditions, the amount of times we see them coming to the fore is not luck, I think. They're doing something right.